Hey guys, it's NC here, and welcome back today to another video. And today we're joined by my friend Dane Hudson from Navajo Naturals and the legend himself, Mitchell Broome. Who or how did you end up getting into fish? And if there was one fish you could keep, what would it be?
I originally got into fish years ago. I got an aquarium with some fish in it as like a stress relief sort of thing for work. Because, like, hey, it's like nowadays there's actually like a study around that actually says that keeping aquariums actually helps you decrease stress. So I was like, perfect, I'll do that. I got a used 55 gallon, and I did, like, I think it was like a PetSmart or Petco angelfish and things like that. Great. And then they started to breed, and I was like, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. And then it drastically spiraled out of control from there. So that's where I got really interested in breeding fish. Um, and then for something that I would love to keep, um, it's not legal right now in the U.S. But if they ever make the dwarf versions of snakeheads legal, then I would definitely go for those. The bigger ones are the ones that get like 3 feet long. Those are the ones that give it the bad rap. The small ones that max out at maybe like 10 to 12 inches or so, those are actually very easily controlled in aquariums, but they're still a snakehead, so they're not legal in the U.S.
I was actually in Thailand like last year, and I actually saw a bunch of bigger snakeheads, like 20 inches.
There are some huge ones out there, but like the small ones are, a lot of them are like super colorful. They're interesting personalities, but like they're just one of those fish that if they ever do actually become legal, then I'm going to be like at the top of the list of getting them.
I'm
That
right there
sounds
with you,
awesome.
Mitchell. I had a question for Mitchell
Oh,
on the
yep.
foods. Do you do any live cultures of any sorts?
Okay, so this is where I really wish I was better at my job. Um, I am good at doing like baby brine shrimp.
Okay.
Twice a day, morning and evening. I have worked it into my process. It's easy, just part of my process. But all of the other live foods that I wish I was actually good at, I am not. So I will periodically, like a couple of times a year, usually try out like micro worms or grindle worms or something like that. And it'll go
Okay.
fine for a few weeks, and then I'll get distracted and the culture will crash. And then a live food culture that crashes generally tells you that by its smell,
Yeah.
just
Stinks. Yeah.
awful. And then I'll swear off of them for a while and then say, next year I'll say, oh, this time it's going to work. So I am good at doing baby brine shrimp. And like during the summer or during the warm season, like Daphnia, things like that, that I actually culture outside in like 5 gallon buckets.
Okay.
That is actually just easy mode, great kind of thing. But all of the other ones that I wish I was good at, I'm not. So I don't do them.
If there was one you wish you were better at, which one would it? Which one?
It'd be one of the small worms, like micro worms or white worms or something like
Okay.
that, that I would use as one of those first foods for Corey's or for fry in general.
Okay.
I've actually been really horrible with microworms. I just let the cultures go sometimes.
Yeah, same. I'm there with you.
All right. Are there any unique or rare Corydora species you think hobbyists should pay more attention to? I know we spoke a little bit about this at the beginning.
So I am actually actively on a mission to produce a lot of 3 different species that I want to actually distribute more and drop the price of to make them more available. So, uh, Gaussii, Bosemani, and a CW38, which is a scleromastex. It's similar to a Barbados. So those 3, I am actually actively trying to produce as many as I can of, so I can actually distribute them at what I believe is a more reasonable price than like a CW38, even a young one. If you were to like buy it from like an LFS or like Wet Spot or something like that, they go for like $120 each. So
Wow.
I think that it's more reasonable to bring them down to that $25 to $30 range, because I honestly have probably 800 young of different ages right now. They breed for me so easily. There's a clutch of eggs that I saw this morning that I need to pull when we get off of this. So like they are breeding constantly without me doing anything. And they're such an awesome fish that I think more people need them, and they don't need to be held up by that crazy high price that they are. So
Are the Vulcans like 200 ish?
Vulcans have actually come down a lot now.
Oh, wow.
So you can actually get young, like tank raised ones for 145, 150 or so each.
That's pretty reasonable. And last year I saw them at like 245, 250 ish. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Exactly. There's some of them that, so some of them are probably going to be hard to produce in mass just because like the way that they spawn.
Yep.
Like Hephaestus, the fireball cories, they actually produce a really large egg for their size, so they don't actually produce that many of them at each spawn. But they're fairly regular and they're actually fairly easy to breed. So it's that you can't make a huge number of them like you can some of the common ones like bronzes or sturbys or things like that. But you get like a slow, steady supply of them coming in. So those sorts of fish, you'll get that kind of thing in some of the fancy plecos and things like that, where they just don't produce enough to really make a huge dent in the market. So those guys are probably always going to be a higher price. But something like some of these, like these CW38s, each spawn I'll get 50 fry out of that'll live. So, and they happen every 10 days or so for me. So at the point that sometimes I don't even pull spawns from them because they just go on their own. So those I think can definitely be more widely distributed and easier for people to actually breed themselves.
That's wonderful.
Hey, Mitchell, I had a question about the CW38s.
Yeah.
So you said they're like Barbados, right?
Yeah. They're a scleromastex.
Okay. What's the care compared to a Barbados?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Really, the big difference is they don't get quite as large, and their colors are different.
Okay.
Now the males, so on Scleromastex, unlike other cories, the males actually get larger than the females.
Okay.
And a big adult male of a Scleromastex, especially of a CW38, their pectoral fins, that front spine along the edge of it gets very extended. So it's like almost they have wings sort of thing. So it's just like visual differences that you're going to see between them and a CW38.
Okay.
Why that is because Scleromastex can, unlike most cories are like just super peaceful. They can just be great with huge groups or whatever. But Scleromastex, the males can be kind of territorial.
I've noticed that with my Barbados.
Yeah. So I think that the extended pectorals not only are they part of a sign of like dominance so they can spawn with females, but also they use them as part of their uh, arguments with other males.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I know you're really into being, well, not into, but you've been recorded to be one of the first to spawn certain species, which leads to Dane's question about the Zaccoplatypus. Dane,
Yeah.
you can take it away.
How do you approach hard to find species in breeding with limited information such as uh, the Zaccos?
Um, so once I actually find a species that I am interested in, and oftentimes that's hard. Sometimes it's like I didn't even know that kind of fish existed, and I see it somewhere, and I quickly do whatever amount of research I can. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll actually give that a try, kind of thing. But
Okay.
so, assuming I've actually got the fish, then it's a lot of Googling. You end up finding whatever you can about them. You look for, like, you try to figure out where they're from. So like Southeast Asia, you try and actually narrow it down so you can understand like the biotope that they're from, because that can help give you hints about how they actually need to be cared for and to like breed. Conditions, the way that the actual streams, rivers, whatever they're from, what they actually look like. So when I was going about looking up Zaccoplatypus, I was definitely looking up biotopes for them. I was getting whatever like video I could find of people actually showing them in the wild in streams. So then I can actually try and like infer things about their setup in nature so I can help understand how I can try different things. And then there's other things like you start finding whatever you can that are like research papers. So you end up finding a research papers that are like describing their morphology. So like their actual physical characteristics and things like that. In the case of Zaccoplatypus, the only real documented spawning that I could find was it being done artificially, where they actually squeeze the eggs out of the females and actually like squeeze the milk out of the males and combine them, sort of thing. And that was part of in a document in a research paper. So
Wow.
yeah, so sometimes it turns out you do things like you start reading research papers, which can be like dense material sometimes. Sometimes they're useful, sometimes they're just like mentions of things that might be useful, but the research paper wasn't focused on that. They were focused on some other aspect of something. And you end up reading the research paper just so you can learn like one little section of a paragraph that happened to actually tell you like the difference in the stripe patterns, so you can actually tell like species A from species B, sort of thing, because maybe it's the stripes down their side are part of the way you can visually tell them apart. So a lot of that. And then once you actually kind of think you actually have an idea about what they need, it's straight just like testing over time. So with me, what I figured out for Zaccoplatypus specifically, to get them to breed, but also allow me to actually collect the eggs, was a size of granule for sand was important, and lay the eggs and fertilize them. What I was finding is when I was using my normal sand, which is something like a pool filter sand that I use for like Corey's, something like that. What I believe was happening was that I think that the sand grains were too small, so they were not able to actually push the eggs far enough down into them. So they were too close up to the surface. So they would almost immediately find them and eat them again, kind of thing. Because fish do stupid things. um, and then I did things like color selection. I tried like light sands versus dark sands and things like that, and didn't seem to notice any difference for that. And then I landed on a larger grain sand that I actually learned about from. Have you ever heard of conservation fisheries?
Yes.
Oh, so I learned about some of the sand that they use there from Derek Wheaton that works there. He's a friend of mine. That they use for like darters and things like that. It's like, okay, this sand looks awesome. Let me try it. And it actually worked. Like they were actually putting the eggs down into the sand far enough. And also an interesting point with it is I'm using it's a Carib Sea jungle something. I don't remember the exact name. But it's a sand that is like a very natural sand that has slightly different grain colors, but they're all generally like a brownish, reddish sort of color. And the eggs from the Zaco platypus are like a peach color, like almost like a peach look, which also like makes them very well blend in with the color of the sand as well. So I'm wondering if that also helps to make it harder for them to find it. But yeah, it's like those sorts of things, very much trial and error. You trying to figure out your game plan from whatever research you can find that maybe if available research papers or videos or pictures of the habitat that they're from, and you get a game plan together and say, okay, well, I'll try this and then I'll try that. I'll give this like 2 months to see if it works and things like that. And eventually maybe you'll land on the right thing.
Well, you kind of already answered this question for us. So let's just move on. Where do you find these rare fish? Aquabid, importers?
All of the above. Sometimes you will see it from some larger distributors like Wet Spot. Sometimes you'll get things from Imperial Tropicals. A lot of times you'll actually find it from smaller distributors that are buying from importers, because a lot of the small companies will do like normal like bread and butter fish, but they'll also bring in some unusual things to try and pique interest in their company. So that's awesome. So it's a wide gambit, as well as making contacts with other hobbyists. So obviously like YouTube and the internet in general, but if you're able to, conventions,
ALA.
clubs, yeah, all kinds of different things like that. Yeah. Whatever, if you're able to actually go to any of the conventions like the ALA or the OCA, I tend to prefer the more hobbyist driven ones, like the OCA, the Ohio Cichlid Association does one. Like the Keystone Clash is a very hobbyist oriented thing. I'm not so much interested in the big things like Aquashella and stuff like that. I get their reasonings, but it doesn't actually necessarily pull me in, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So but the more hobbyist driven ones, great place to find contacts. And then once you get more people that are interested, they will tell you about other places that you
Yep.
can find things, and then your just network just grows. So hobbyists generally are the places that I will find the most unique, rare stuff that comes in that is possibly available. And then I do know quite a few different importers that work with exporters from different countries. And then the assorted different online websites. Honestly, most like local fish stores where the rare stuff isn't their reason. They're out there to like sell like the more common stuff to their clientele, because I'm not necessarily the target audience for my local fish stores. But sometimes they will bring in something interesting, or sometimes I'll run across an online website for a local fish store where they actually do ship, and then I'll be interested in that. But yeah, it's just a wide range of places. Aquabid can be good. eBay supposedly can. I haven't
Dan,
actually really ran across much interesting on eBay. Um, Dan's Fish is great. It all depends on what you're interested in. So yeah.
so last final question for you. If you could talk to your younger self when starting about fish keeping and breeding, what would you tell yourself? What would be the one piece of advice for the viewers?
Uh, if it was my younger self and I was actually interested in the hobby at that time, I would say go on collecting trips. Like right now, I'm old and got a back problem kind of thing. I'm not going to go to South America and trope through the jungle and end up jacking up my back in the middle of South America in some place that's going to be a real problem. But back when I was super comfortable with it, collecting trips, like save up for a year. You use that as your thing you want to actually like treat yourself to that year. Whatever you can to collect up enough money to actually do a collecting trip, because I so wish that I was actually able to do that. That I did that when I was able to do that.
Thank you so much, Mitchell Broome, for your time, sharing your expertise. It's been wonderful. I think we all had a good time here, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Yep.
Thank you,
Thanks
Mitchell. Nice to meet you,
thank
man.
you so much.
Oh yeah, good to
Make
meet you guys.
sure reach out to us. We'll see you guys in the next video. And yeah, thank you.
All right.